Chapter 12, Reckoning and Resilience. The precinct buzzed with a subdued energy. Officers moved through the halls, speaking in hushed tones, their expressions a mix of triumph and exhaustion. Dominic Rossi's arrest and the evidence recovered from the raid had sent shockwaves through the city, but the fight was far from over. Detective Lena Walsh sat in the war room, surrounded by files, photos, and reports. The red-tabbed file Dominic had so smugly pointed her toward lay open in front of her. It was a roadmap to corruption, a tangled web that connected the Rossi family's empire to some of the city's most powerful figures. Council members, police officials, judges, they were all complicit. The scope of it was staggering, but the question that haunted Lena now was simple. Who could she trust? Her phone buzzed on the table. It was Marcus. "Tell me you've got good news," Lena said, answering the call. "I'm not sure what to call it," Marcus replied. His voice was strained, but steadier than it had been in weeks. "I've been keeping tabs on the docks like you asked. They're clearing out. Trucks, containers, everything's moving fast." Lena's grip tightened on the phone. They're cutting their losses. Dominic's arrest spooked them. "That's not all," Marcus said. "I overheard something. Maria's taking charge, and she's not just running. She's planning something." "What kind of something?" Lena asked, her chest tightening. "I don't know," Marcus said, "but it sounded big. Whatever it is, it's happening soon." Lena leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Maria Rossi was more ruthless than her brother, and with Dominic out of the picture, she'd have no reason to hold back. "Stay low, Marcus. I'll handle it." "Lena," Marcus said, his voice softening. "Be careful." "I always am," she said, though she knew it wasn't true. That evening, Lena stood on the steps of the courthouse, a cold wind biting at her face. She held the red-tabbed file close to her chest, her mind heavy with the choices ahead. The evidence inside could expose the city's darkest secrets, but it would also make her a target. Captain Briggs joined her, his expression unreadable. "You're really going through with this?" "I don't have a choice," Lena said. "If we let this slide, everything we've done means nothing." Briggs sighed, shoving his hands into his pockets. "You know what this will cost you, don't you? The people in that file, they don't go down quietly." "I'm counting on it," Lena said, turning to face him. "Are you with me?" Briggs hesitated, then nodded. "Always." At the Rossi estate, Maria stood in the now empty study, her eyes scanning the room as if searching for something. The furniture had been stripped, the walls bare, but the weight of the family's legacy still lingered. Joey Fontana entered, his laptop tucked under his arm. "It's done," he said. "The docks are clear, and the offshore accounts are secure." Maria nodded, her expression cold. "Good. We'll rebuild. Dominic may have been content to play the long game, but I'm not. If Walsh wants a war, she'll get one." "What about Dalton?" Joey asked. "He's still out there." Maria's eyes darkened. "Not for long." The city's courthouse was packed the next morning as Lena presented her findings to a grand jury. The evidence from the Rossi raid was damning, but the red-tabbed file was the real bombshell. It laid bare the network of corruption that had allowed the Rossi family to thrive for decades. When Lena stepped outside, the crowd of reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, microphones thrust in her face. "Detective Walsh, what do you hope to accomplish with this? Do you fear retaliation from the Rossi family? Is it true you're targeting public officials?" Lena held up her hand, silencing the barrage of questions. "The Rossi family isn't just a criminal enterprise. They're a symptom of a larger problem. Corruption has infected this city at every level, and it's time we held people accountable. No one is above the law." That night, Lena returned to her apartment, the weight of the day finally catching up with her. She poured herself a glass of whiskey and sank into the couch, staring out at the city lights. The battle wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. But for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen. It was a text from Marcus. "They're coming for me. Need help." Lena's heart stopped. She grabbed her jacket and keys, adrenaline surging through her veins. As she stepped outside, the night felt darker than usual, the city's familiar hum laced with danger. Maria Rossi sat in the back of a black SUV, her gaze fixed on the city skyline. "Dalton first," she said to the driver, "then Walsh." The man nodded, his expression grim. Maria leaned back, her lips curling into a cold smile. The game wasn't over, not yet. The city braced itself for the storm to come, as Lena sped through the streets, determined to save Marcus and finish what she had started. The Rossi family's empire was crumbling, but the fight was far from finished, and Lena Walsh wasn't backing down.